Hello. I'm going to start doing some storytelling videos. I've had a few people, friends and online, ask if I could tell more stories. They actually like my stories. So I'm going to do this new playlist, and some of them might have tangential connection to like the occult or mysticism, but some of them might just be funny anecdotes or crazy things that have happened to me or just memorable moments in my life. So I think I'm going to start with my first 24 hours in Korea. I moved to Korea in 2009 to teach English, and I didn't really have a large idea of what it would be like here before I came, so there was a lot of culture shock, but I'll just sort of lay it out quickly and then you can get some kind of idea of what I'm getting at here. So I took a flight here, and it was a long flight. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was about 12 hours with a quick layover in Japan. And I showed up here, and my boss in Korea, they call them 원장님. Her and her daughter picked me up from the airport, and she spoke a little bit of English, but her daughter was definitely better than her. And I think that's probably why she brought her daughter with her. And her daughter was kind of like the admin person of her school. So I got in the car, and immediately there was just a lot of culture shock, cultural differences, because I read a book on the Confucianist way in which Koreans live their lives before I came here, but didn't really prepare me, I guess, for what was to come. So we were trying to make small talk, and because of her limited English and her daughter's sort of deferential attitude toward her, it was quite hard to communicate. And it was really the first moment I realized that I was in for quite an experience, because even just the basics of saying hello and where are you from and things about your family and stuff was very different. So needless to say, the car ride back to Ilsan, which is the city that I lived in at the time, was very uncomfortable. And it made me quickly understand that my interactions with people here were going to be very challenging. So I got there, and she dropped me off at the apartment that I was going to be sharing with an unknown person. It was my first contract, and I didn't really realize you could get your own apartment at that time. But I agreed to stay with this person. It was supposed to be a very big apartment. And actually for quite a long time before that, once I signed the contract, I was actually very apprehensive because I had no idea who this person was. They sent me one email as a sort of introduction, but I mean, an email, you have no idea, So I eventually got in the house, brought all my stuff in, and I was exhausted because I had been on the plane all night, and jet lag and stuff. So I got in there, and the guy that was there, he turned out to be actually really cool, and we hit it off immediately, and we're chatting in the kitchen, and he's kind of filling me in on what it is I've gotten myself into, and he wasn't very positive about it. He's since moved on and moved to Vietnam, but at the time, he was sort of saying, be prepared. It's going to be really crazy. You're not going to, you have no idea what you're in for. So he wanted to go out, but I couldn't. I was just too tired. So we decided that we would go out the following night and we'd go to dinner, and it'd be my first sort of experience in the nightlife and stuff of Korea. But so at this time, when I went to bed, it was probably like 2 or 3 a.m. And unfortunately, the school, I mean, this is a very common thing in Korea, they didn't really give me any time. Like, I had to be there at the school at 9 a.m. the next morning. So I got very little sleep, and I wasn't really mentally prepared because I hadn't really even spent an hour outside, in the actual environment. So I was quite nervous, and I got in there, and it was just not what I expected. There were just little things, you don't really think about them in the West, about taking your shoes off. And even in a school, we had to take our shoes off. We had to wear slippers. And it was almost every single thing that I was being exposed to was something unknown or done differently than I was used to. And so the beginning of the day was quite a struggle. And they didn't even really train me. They just sort of threw me into the class and expected me to kind of connect with these children. And many of them were maybe like 6 or 7 years old. They were very young and very limited English. And they just kind of left me in the room. And it was like, wow, this is pretty crazy, because I didn't have that much teaching experience before that, and very little with children. So I kind of just got thrown into it. But as the day went on, I kind of got the idea, and it wasn't really that hard. It did take some patience and creativity, I guess, to get through it. So near the end of the day, my friend, tells me that they had this talent show prepared for the second half of the day. So I thought, okay, cool, I won't really have to teach. We'll just watch this talent show. So I was a little bit relieved because the first half was so difficult. But that's where like this story takes kind of a sharp turn. So we get to the talent show, and we're in this, like, I wouldn't call it an auditorium. It was a very small room, but it could fit maybe one class sitting on mats on the floor. So there's no tables in this room. And all the teachers, myself, and in Korea, there's usually co-teachers, Korean co-teachers in some classes. We were all sort of lined up in the back, and we're supposed to watch this thing. And many of the co-teachers had to prepare these talent shows for each student that they would present to us. And we were supposed to sort of grade them, or it wasn't really grades. It was more like, oh, clap, this is good, or whatever. So, the first few were just what I kind of expected, which were, they wrote some paragraph and maybe had somebody proofread it partly. And then they kind of presented, this is my puppy, or whatever. And, after a little bit of time, I saw this student sort of practicing off to the side, like these kind of dance moves. So I was like, I wonder what she's going to do. So she kind of leaves, and another student finishes, and then one of the co-teachers goes over and presses a button on a CD player to play this song. And it's a K-pop song. I don't recall which one it was, but it was probably like Girls' Generation or something from that era. So about, like I said, 2009. So kind of early K-pop. So it was really loud, like super loud. And I was like, what is going to happen here, you know? So this girl comes out, and she's maybe 8 years old, right? And she's in this outfit that's like, I mean, an adult could wear it and it would be a bit suggestive, but a child wearing it was like, what the hell? So I just turned to my friend and I looked at him, and he just kind of shrugged and was like, I have no idea what's coming. So we're like, all right. So we're watching this, and she starts doing these like dance moves, these quite suggestive dance moves on the stage. And I was in complete shock. And she starts lip syncing this song. And it was just, I guess I just wasn't prepared for it. I mean, in the West, there's a lot of sexualization of people in general, especially on TV and in ads and stuff. I sort of just assumed that in Asia it would be more contained, because in some ways a lot of Asian cultures are more conservative. But it was not that. It was literally the opposite of that. And my friend and I, we just couldn't stop laughing. Like, we just couldn't believe that this was happening. And, you know, it finally finishes, and we just turn and we just look at each other, and he just like mouths like, and it was just like so crazy. And that was definitely the moment where I realized I wasn't in Kansas anymore. So the day finally finishes, and you know, we go to dinner, him and I. The school wants us to go to dinner, but that would be I think the following day, if I remember correctly. So him and I go to dinner and get a beer or whatever, and we talked about it for literally almost 2 hours, how crazy it was. Just laughing. It was just insane. So, you know, the rest of the evening was pretty good, and I was obviously exhausted. But I guess the point of the story is that something you learn when you live outside of your own country is that there's always something unexpected. And any preconception you have of how things may run in your country is not the case in other places. So that's all I have for this one, but I'll be posting these semi-often, so there are more to come. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks.